that have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Oh, I better take that one down and put myself up there. Sorry about that. Normally, for whatever reason, that falls away. It didn't. How are you, folks? Hope you're doing all right for a Thursday. Life, the universe, and everything moves on at a pace around here. I guess it does at your place too for Christmas is on the way. And depending on how you celebrate it, there's probably a bit of shopping that you're doing, getting ready to prepare some magnificent feast for the family that is going to be gathered around. And I'm looking forward to all of that with my family coming up, as I'm sure you are with yours. Now, fairly big topic tonight for a conversation. It has been rumoured in certain circles that the death penalty should be reinstated in this country. There is room for the death penalty still in this country, but certainly, as far as I'm aware, only for treason and maybe other state-based crime like that. But certainly for a murder or even a number of murders, there is no capital punishment. In fact, corporal punishment in this country is also outlawed. Many of you will remember the day when you got the strap or the cane at school. And I know I've certainly had that experience. I missed the cane, thankfully, but I did get Roger the fan belt. And that was a fairly unpleasant experience. Should we have a return to the death penalty? The last time we had a death penalty in this country was in the mid-'60s, and I think Ronald Ryan was the last man to die under that death penalty law, hanged until he died, or till was dead by his neck at Pentridge Prison. And I want to say he was buried there as well. There are quite a number of inmates who were buried at Pentridge Prison. So tonight we've got two people joining us to have a conversation about the death penalty and should it be revived? Should it be reinstated into Australian law? Should it be available when cases come before the courts that might mirror something along the lines of a terrorist attack or, just a mass attack in general, or a heinous attack on children, potentially. Anyway, there is a variety of subjects. Before I introduce our guests tonight, though, I want to introduce part of the argument, at least, with a gentleman who I respect a great deal. He's a former service operator from Western Australia. These days, he is a farmer. He has his own YouTube channel called Jack Out the Back. And I stumbled across it because it's all about camels and having to shoot camels because they're feral out there, and on his property where they're trying to do beef and other stuff, the camels do a great deal of damage. So his channel is a lot focused on gun laws, and particularly on the gun laws that have been introduced into Western Australia, and we'll no doubt talk about those later in the show tonight. But before we get into tonight's show, I wanted to play something that Jack said.
Australians need to ask a hard question, not just about what happened, but about what it's going to cost us. Every time there's a terrorist attack, we're told it's about safety. But what we actually lose is freedom. We lose the ability to protest. We lose the ability to speak freely. We lose control over our own country. All in the name of protecting what? And now, on top of all of that, Australians are going to be handed the bill. This individual will face court, and rightly so. But what comes next? Taxpayers will fund his legal defence. That alone can run into hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more. There'll be months, possibly years of court proceedings, appeals, and then further appeals. Each step costing millions across the justice system. Courts, prosecutors, defence lawyers, expert witnesses, and administration. Then there's incarceration. High-risk prisoners held in protective custody cost well over $300,000 per year, often double or triple the cost of a standard inmate. for his safety. And that's not for a year, that is for decades. So while Australians are struggling to pay rent, buy groceries, or keep the lights on, we will be paying to house, protect, feed, and medically care for someone who wanted nothing more than to end the lives of others. And we know how this will go. There will be arguments about isolation, about being ostracised, about society somehow failing him. But despite the overwhelming evidence, despite the victims, despite the fact this was an attack on Australians, it carries on. So here's the question that needs to be asked firmly and honestly. If Australians are expected to carry the cost, shouldn't Australians at least have transparency and a say in how the system operates? Shouldn't we know the real financial impact? Shouldn't the victims come first, not last? Shouldn't public safety and social cohesion mean more than endless processes that benefit no one but lawyers? This isn't about vengeance, it's about priorities. Because right now, Australians are losing freedoms, losing trust and losing money, all while being told to stay quiet and accept it. And this is the cost our country and society can no longer afford. So here's the question Australians need answered. Shouldn't our money, our taxes, serve Australia, protect Australians? Because right now, it feels like Australians are paying for everything except being protected in their own country.
Hear, hear. I got to say I agree with more or less everything that Jack said there. And once again, if you want to find him, Jack Out the Back on YouTube, and tell him Voice of Freedom sent you. He is a very clear-thinking man, and particularly when it comes to gun laws and the restrictions that have been placed on every gun owner in Western Australia. And soon, many of those restrictions will be placed on gun owners right across Australia. Anyway, he raises an interesting point, particularly when it comes to keeping those people who've committed these crimes, these heinous crimes, alive for what will be the rest of their life in jail. Now, a 24-year-old young man in, he'll go to Supermax, a terrorist cell in Goulburn Prison. He won't get too much interaction with anybody else there. He'll wind up doing an Ivan Milat. He'll die of something at some stage at somewhere in the future after costing us millions of dollars. Simple as that. So would the death penalty be a quicker, faster way and ultimately cheaper for the Australian public to not only feel like justice has been served, but money has been saved? Let's talk about it with Tim Dwyer and Darren Bergwerf tonight. And good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for sparing the time. I would love to say that Becio, who did say from Truth Seekers that she would be joining us tonight, can't. She sent in her apologies by way of this photo. That's her, Doris, and Shell, and Cherie. Oh, what am I saying? Sherry, Rebecca, and the lovely Doris at the beach drinking cocktails. So good on you girls. Sherry and everybody having fun. Couldn't join us tonight. I understand. Little things. All right, the death penalty. Should we reinstate that and make it part of Australian law for the most heinous of crimes? Tim Dwyer, what are your thoughts?
Well, Carl, I have given this a lot of thought over a long period of time. Not just today and not just since last weekend. And my platform is for specific and heinous acts. Yes, the death penalty should apply. I'll take it one step further, that if they are sentenced to death, I also believe that there should be a punishment that is another deterrent other than death, because it's a pretty high bar to get to the death penalty. But for the heinous crime that fails the death penalty, the punishment below the death penalty should be the lash with the cat of nine tails.
Whoa. Oh, the cat of nine tails.
Cat of nine
Maybe-
tails, and I'll explain why in
Maybe
a
we should
little bit. That's
explain
my
that.
platform.
Yeah, okay.
There we
I
go.
think the cat of nine tails. I like the cat of nine tails idea. All right, Darren, what are your thoughts?
Well, apparently there's clubs you can actually go and request the cat of nine tails. Aside of that, and I digress, but and how's Becio's form? What a beach!
Yeah.
I know, what a complete beach. In fact, she's surrounded by beaches.
Yes. Okay, so the death penalty, and to take the emotion out, I've been very probably loud about this as what should be happening to certain people over the last few years. But if we take the emotion out of this, I think if you look at the death penalty, if Martin Bryant had received the death penalty back in 1996 or 1997 or 1998, we would have an innocent man in his grave. Now, in the current system,
the point about Martin Bryant is he's never had a trial.
Correct.
So
correct.
That's probably a big question, which we need to talk about another day.
I could not even contemplate bringing the death penalty back in the system, the current system we have today, where there is so much collusion, corruption, and setups of people, and people thrown under the bus. This individual in Sydney last weekend, or the two individuals, I would rather get to the bottom of who actually paid these people, who organised these people to carry out that mass murder against the Jewish community in Sydney. And the minute you remove them from the planet, you lose the ability to actually dig a bit deeper and find out who these plebs that are giving their life up, who they're giving it up for, who directed them. So to me, to execute people, it's an emotional thing. I get it. And at some point in the future, I wouldn't oppose it for certain things, but there would have to be unequivocal evidence and fact of the guilt of the crime before you could send somebody to their grave.
So I take your point. The video evidence that has been gathered over particularly the 20 minutes of the active shooting of part of the event is pretty self-explanatory, although video, we all know, can be rigged. Very different to be able to do that in front of so many people under such a situation. So what you can do is rig the circumstances. Do you feel that that is in part what we were witnessing, was part of what we were seeing a play?
I believe it was. I mean, there's so much evidence. And when you look at the Christchurch one, straight after that, there was so much evidence. When you look at the Charlie Kirk and when you look at this recent one, there's so much evidence that doesn't stack up that this was just a lone hand doing the deed. A lot of people are saying that there are, regardless of the accusations or the assumptions that that there were blanks being fired and this was all a staged event, I won't discount the fact that or the possibility that real people lost real lives.
Yep.
How that was filmed so successfully, why the police stood back and watched for 20 minutes and did nothing, is beyond me. When we have an incident in Victoria where supposedly two police officers were unalived and there's no footage of it, there was 10 of them there, and they still haven't caught the perpetrator. So we are living in a time of deception, deceit, and setups that you could not even contemplate, in my opinion, bringing back the death penalty until such time as we clean up the mess. And I would rather focus on, who's setting this up, who the people in government are, and the criminality of the system, rather than the individuals that are put up there and hung out to dry as, useful idiots, I suppose, for the bigger agenda.
All right, Tim, back to you. Do you want to re-qualify your position?
My position stands, but Darren makes valid point that you must be unequivocal in the fact that an event took place, a heinous event took place. Now, in looking, and Darren's right, you can make videos do anything today. AI is a wicked thing. But the young guy standing on the bridge firing that rifle, semi-automatic, bolt loading, he'd obviously had a fair amount of practice. That was no novice shooter.
Yeah, you don't get that from a video game, do you?
No, I have done in years past, fired hundreds and hundreds of thousands of rounds of ammunition through all sorts of weapons. And I can tell you that that was a very proficient person behind handling that rifle. Now, the other side of this is that, yes, Darren's right. We need to get behind, find out who's the puppet master pulling these strings. And I can tell you this, that threatening them with the Supermax prison isn't a big enough deterrent to make them spill the beans. So this is going to sound heinous, and it's going to sound totally repugnant to a lot of people. We have found ourselves in a nation of, and trapped within this nation of lies that are so wide and deep that we can't define them from truth these days. And we have to find a way to get through that. I believe that the human spirit has a joy switch and a fear switch. Right now, Australia is running on fear and anger. Now, that's a very, very low vibration. That's where the puppet masters, if you want to call them whatever you want to call them, that's where they want society vibrating at a low, particularly coming into what is supposed to be the season of joy and happiness, Christmas, right? So they've done what they wanted to do in that respect. I mentioned prior the cat of nine tails. Yeah. When you go through the old Adelaide jail on a tour, they show you the cat of nine tails, and they give you the history of the people who the last 5 people who received the cat of nine tails in the old Adelaide jail. Now, they were imprisoned for, I think, 5 years for, I think it was battery of a woman, right? Was the one that I do remember. And I think it was 6 months before his release, not on conviction, but before his release, he was given 3 lashes of the cat of nine tails each month for those 6 months. He lived in dread of the next lot of lashes that came his way. When he was released in the age of 30 odd years of age, he never committed another crime of any sort at all. He didn't even cross the road without permission. Right? Now, we have a system, a judicial system, where the punishment no longer fits the crime. In the case of, if we're in a situation where we cannot be certain that somebody, this young man, acted alone, okay, but if we are certain that he acted, and if we are certain that he committed the crime of randomly shooting decent civil people to death simply because of their ethnicity or their religious belief, then it is my point that if he will not give up who put him up to it, that's fine. 3 months before he is to be hung by the neck until dead, give him the lash. And why do I say that? Because the next, and I'm all for televising it at midnight. Put it on the TV at midnight, so as that any other compatriot that he may have, any other like-minded person, is going to see the the brutality of the punishment. And it is brutal. It's fierce. But I will guarantee you, they will not want to play that game themselves.
Yeah.
Until the punishment fits the crime. If it is a heinous crime, the punishment must also be put out in a way that absolutely tells whoever is of that mindset, bugger this, I'm not doing that. I don't care what you're going to pay me. I don't care what you're going to promise me. No, I'm not doing it. And I can tell you this.
Is justice being seen to be done when you're paying $300,000 a year to keep him safe in a cell? Or is it just being seen to be administered? It's not really being done, is it, Darren?
Well, is it justice? What is justice? No. If he killed that little girl, Matilda, right? What was she, 10 years old?
Yeah.
He took 70 years from her. 70 years. What manner of sitting in a jail cell pays for that, let alone anybody else? And the other side of it is this, Carl. The capital punishment is, from a spiritual perspective, a most magnificent thing. It is at that point of preparing to die is where most people will fall to their knees, beg forgiveness, and repent of their sin. But whilst they sit in Supermax and being treated like whatever, there is no repentance. There is no ability for them to come before their maker and be judged one way or the other. Now, people say, yeah, but they're not Christians. I don't care whether they're Christians or not. There's no atheists in a foxhole, I can tell you. And he will have the opportunity to repent. I think that's a good thing.
I agree. And it should mean something if it's a genuine kind of repentance. But being of the faith that he is, he won't be repenting to a Christian God. Darren, what are your thoughts?
Well, exactly. Your point there, Carl, says it all. These people, potentially where he's come from or who he's been incited by, it is glory to die. So they are not afraid of dying. It will not deter them from their mission whatsoever. Yet, and I'm not. I am kind of being devil's advocate here a little bit, because for certain things, and at some point in the future, I can see that this will be something that needs to be brought back. But right at the moment, in this present time, I don't believe that it is. There is too much corruption, and until we remove the corruption and the setups, and it's like you take guns away from the people, and the only ones left with guns are the criminals, right? And they just happen to be every state police force in the country. So
soon enough, the criminals in our streets that actually have the guns are going to be our allies. We'll be going to them for help. So it's going to be an interesting situation.
That doesn't discount the attack on innocent civilians, and that's just that is unacceptable. But I still believe, regardless, and I know that's not what the debate's about, but I do believe this thing was set up for, similar to 1996, was for a purpose for stricter gun laws and to disarm the people, to circumnavigate any potential uprising from the tyranny and war crimes and crimes against humanity that our government are committing against the people.
Absolutely. So,
I agree with that. But Carl, let me jump in there if I can.
Sure.
We're just talking about this one case at the moment where the perpetrator is not of the Christian faith, and I get that. But if the death penalty is back on the table for child rape, that's proven beyond a doubt, not just hearsay, child rape.
Bring up abductor
Yep.
and murderer.
Right? These sorts of people. I don't believe there's no punishment on earth enough for those people. And again, it gives them the opportunity to repent. But somebody just put in the chat, it says the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments doesn't say thou shalt not kill. The Ten Commandments says thou shalt not murder.
Yeah.
There's a big difference, right? And so with the death penalty, it is not a murder. It is a justified killing under law. And so should the death penalty come in? Yes. Who should be the first recipient of the death penalty? It should be the treasonous people who have destroyed the workings of this Commonwealth. They are the first people who should suffer the death penalty because it stands for them. It still stands. And in the South Australian Parliament about 8 years ago, the leader of the opposition put a bill in, and she said that it scares her to do such a thing because treason still carries the death penalty here in Australia. And so they know that treason still carries a death penalty here in Australia, and still they commit the treason. I think it's time. Yes, we must protect the gun owners, because Hitler went through and had all the guns confiscated out of Holland and Belgium, France, before the armies went in, and the people had no defense. Here we are again with Hitler at the head of our country. His name is Anthony Norman Ellery Albanese, and he is the modern day Hitler, destroying this country and everybody in it. And therefore, I believe that if the Australian, and they don't have the decency to stand down or any of that sort of stuff, but I honestly believe Australia should look abroad at some of the experiences that have happened in other countries with other parliaments that have, what should I say, got very smoky very quickly. They put the red heifer through it.
Yeah. So true. I was going to bring up the fact that there are those people who have admitted their crime and are serving a life sentence for it. And I was going to bring up Daniel Morecambe's abductor and murderer in that regard. But I think we can all agree, for the most heinous of crimes, the death penalty is a great option, and I would have thought a deterrent. So, Darren, do you think it's a deterrent? Will it stop people committing crime if we had it back?
I don't necessarily believe it will stop people committing crimes. Like I said earlier, a lot of these people, it's part of their culture to die, and they're highly regarded if they become a martyr. So, and as far as, when you look back, I mean, there's still some talk around that guy, the backpacker fella. That actually he wasn't. I mean, there's so much criminality and so much setups and so much fraud in the system we have that right at this moment in time, you can't bank or guarantee on any evidence that's put before a court. You can't guarantee on the court's assessment of that evidence, and to jump the gun and bring that back in any time before we have this belligerent foreign occupying organised crime syndicate removed and everyone else underneath it from this country, and we get back a justice system that is justice, not an injustice system, I don't think it's an option, and it shouldn't be on the table.
So you don't live too far from Morty Alec. Yesterday, a couple of hundred teenagers rampaged through the joint, did whatever they liked, took whatever they liked, and then went and had a brawl on the beach, or maybe they had the brawl first and then got hungry and thirsty and went and, I don't know whether it was at Woolworths or Coles, whatever they went through. Now, I don't know that any of them have been found or charged, but should we look at a reintroduction of corporal punishment for young offenders? Should we have corporal punishment back in schools? Because I know we all went through school at an age where corporal punishment was allowed. It sort of finished not long after I left school, and particularly if you were in a private school. I think it disappeared in public schools, but then my parents sent me to a private school where they had a couple more years to beat the shit out of you before the law blanketed them as well. But I've got to say, it was a hell of a deterrent. I mean, I was in late study for talking after lights went out in the dorm, and our whole dorm room was in there. There was 13 guys. We didn't know how long we'd been sitting there, all looking forward, meant to be studying something, but we only had a book to read or whatever we'd taken to bed. We'd been sitting there for a long time. Somebody behind me asked whether what the time was, and I said, "Oh, it's 12:30," and that's all I said. And another bloke said, "I wonder when we get to go to bed." And a voice behind us, which was the discipline master of the school, said, "You three outside now." And there we are in our shorty little summer pajamas, getting 6 of the best around the arse with a fan belt. A beautifully cut down to size bit of fan belt, I must add. But yeah, painful experience. And I never talked in late study ever again. In fact, I never talked again when the lights went out. There were those who got the strap a fair bit in school, weren't there, Darren?
Oh yeah, I know someone that used to get it frequently throughout his time at school. It never deterred,
the same
it never
things, or for
deterred me.
exploring? Same thing, or just exploring new experiences?
Yeah, it never deterred that individual whatsoever. No. In fact, it was a badge of honour. So I don't think that's the answer. Once again, everything, and this is a conversation I have on all the other stuff that people are having meltdowns about digital ID and all this stuff that's being thrown at them. This was my same position in 2021 when we had the biosecurity act that Dan Andrews was bringing in, and everyone was having a meltdown. And I said, for crying out loud, it's irrelevant. If we could just focus on the source of the problem, and it all goes back to a foreign occupying belligerent organised crime syndicate acting as your state governments and as your federal governments, supported by and racketeering with the Victorian police and all state police forces, the banks and every other organisation. Now, until we get that removed and that scourge removed from society, and we can retrain the youth and we can get back to some sort of normality where people aren't under financial stress, all of these, not all, a lot of these issues and problems will start to dissipate. So while we can look at the problem, we need to spend more time focusing on the cause, right? And this is all by design. The breakdown of families through the family law court, government policy, the lack of discipline that parents are allowed to enforce on their children. I mean, it goes across the board. It all comes from the same people. And until we remove these criminals, these problems, you're never going to fix the problem, okay? So let's focus on the root of the problem, and that will help fix the actual outcome further down the chain. And these youth they're lost. I mean, the whole population, the whole world are lost at the moment. They've lost all motivation for any kind of civility in life. And once again, until we remove the perpetrators of that that have caused that, not much is going to change.
Tim?
Yep. 100% agree. My analogy to this is that every problem out there, it doesn't matter whether it's immigration, housing, finances, banking, criminal cops, guns, doesn't matter what it is. It all comes out of the places that they call Parliament by the people they call the honourables. They cause the entire lot, right? In my analogy, it's like we're all trying to put out all these little bushfires, but the mongrels walking around with the box of matches goes unabated, right? So now this is not where I thought I was going to be tonight, but the Reformation. Tim's banged on about the Reformation. of our Commonwealth Parliament for 3 years now, and I have the documents done. And the main document was 28 pages. It's now down to 3. It's very concise. I've had somebody go over that who is very, very au fait with international criminal law and said that it is a ripper. Made a couple of adjustments, thank you, but it is a ripper document. The second that document goes to the politicians. Now, I know they've all been served before and they don't take any notice and it goes in the round receptacle. That doesn't matter. The second document is the document that every man and woman in this country can take, put their name on it, put their state on it, swear their allegiance to the Constitution. Now, people go, oh, yeah, but that puts us back under King Charles and blah, 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 blah. Swear their allegiance to the Constitution. But what it does is it also points out that this is a political declaration, and anybody who interferes with them, causes them a damage or a harm in any way, be it police, parliament, or whomever, will be charged under international criminal law and will be guilty of the crime of declaring war against the Commonwealth, because you and I are the Commonwealth. We hand those documents in. We don't have to go and amass in Canberra by the millions and stand there looking for a dunny to poop in. We do it from our comfort of our home. We get in the car, you drive down to the local courthouse, the local cop shop, the local council office, the local politician's office, state and federal, and you hand them in your signed declaration of withdrawal of consent to the belligerent occupation. And once that is done, and it could be done over a 1-week period, then the Australian people go into their state parliaments, their state offices, and they can go into the Canberra Parliament, and we can literally, physically, by law, drag them out, because they are now no longer either a state employee or a Commonwealth employee. They are done and dusted. Both those documents are ready to go. I think the fervour of the Australian people right now might be a good thing. I can post the 300 letters to the state and federals, and I can get it all done next week, and then 14 days later we can go take a week, which would put us in early January, middle of January, and we can all then go and hand in our declaration of withdrawal of consent to the belligerent occupiers, and then take back our country and reinstate the actual law.
Will you have a list available of places that people can go and just think of in your local area? And that would be pretty much the same for all local areas.
Yeah.
And federal offices, I guess. You want to go to every local member's office. You want to go to state and federal members' offices and hand deliver it to them.
So it's no expense, apart from a little bit of petrol, drive around, hand them in. You don't even post them, just hand them in.
Any authority or any group claiming authority over you in some way, shape or form. So,
any group claiming authority over us has none. That is the courts, that is the state police, that is the federal, that is the state governments. They literally have no authority, only that which we imagine they have.
Yeah, I agree. Darren, what do you think about this?
Well, with all due respect, and I love Tim to bits, and I know he's done a mountain of work over many decades, long before I joined this war. It still comes back to the amount of paperwork that has been sent and lodged over the last 5 years. I mean, we did the non-consent for cameras and all this kind of stuff. We used Tim's and other paperwork. They just do not care. until we realise that what it's going to take. And look, I'm watching, and I've tried to retract myself a little bit, but the amount of people that are still engaged and super excited because there's 60,000 signatures now for Anthony Albanese's resignation. And this is where we're at. We have a bunch of, and I need to be nice here, but I'll have to use the right word. But the freedom movement is so far removed from reality and being up to speed with what's actually going on in the world and this country that any resignation of a Dan Andrews, they want to have a party. A petition to get Albanese to step down. Well, guess what? All you're going to have is another person step in, another puppet. It is not the answer. So until everyone gets on the one page, and I've been asking for this for over 6 months, we need to build a temporary government of 12 to 24 people and put them in place to workshop and get a structure behind what that looks like. Workshop it, troubleshoot it, and develop that plan over a 12-month period while we grow a public awareness campaign to show just how systemically criminal the whole system is throughout. So we win the court of public opinion. And at the point when we have that council or that temporary government ready to go, and we have the people that have the courage, the skill set, and the support behind them to go in there, we can then, and we've got 3 or 4 million people willing to sacrifice and leave their place of employment and shut this country down, right? All commerce to be shut down, withdraw our labour, withdraw our finances across the board until you stand down and we send a formal letter of stand down. We have a temporary government. We've got to have a solution as to how we're going to take over the country. How are we going to run the country?
That sounds to me like that could work in league with what Tim's suggesting here, because if his time frame basically says by the middle of January we've sent letters to everybody saying we no longer respect or understand or even see any kind of authority from them, then Australia Day, let's say, comes along. It's really when the kids start going back to school around the end of January these days. The politicians creep their way back into Canberra early February, and they have their big farmers welcome back in early February usually. Is that the time then to employ your end of the plan, Darren? And
nowhere near it. Nowhere near it. This country is so far away from any of this. I mean, remember, do you remember the Eureka Stockade? How many people signed up and said, yeah, let's do this. Come on, there's 1,100 of us. We can take them on. How many turned up on the day? So you can send as many letters as you like. Everyone's got so much courage when they just got to send an email or fill in a form and send it off to their MP or to their thingo. But when it comes to the crunch and that doesn't work, what are they willing to do? How far are they willing to go peacefully to actually make this work? And letters and forms and demands are not going to work unless we have a mass of the population to stand this government down and to stand down ourselves and mentally, spiritually, and financially prepare over a 12-month period so that we can stand this government down within 18 months. That's trying to do it any shorter than that, I think is going to be an epic fail, in my opinion.
Well, I think we've had 5 years of preparing people to do what's got to be done. And if 5 years is not enough, another 18 months isn't going to make any difference, in my opinion. And so the difference is these aren't just letters. I'll do a video and I'll read the letters out so as everybody has their knowledge and understanding of what the process is. But it is at the end when the document is taken and handed in, everybody does it in a particular week. So over that week, everybody that's involved will put their letters in, and hopefully that's 4, 5, 6 million people. Then the following week, we physically walk into their office and throw them out. We
I can see
physically
problems
go,
with that when you walk into Parliament and try and get in the door, and then try and find the parliamentarians' offices and get in through that door, and then throw anything out of there.
well, the bottom end, Carl, is if, let's say they're all in Canberra and maybe 10,000 of us turned up in Canberra, their 200 security guards isn't going to match the 10,000 people. It really won't. It won't match the million people, whatever turns up. It won't match the state parliaments.
They also have access to military access in Canberra that can be backed up very quickly.
Well, the military cannot back up the parliament against the Australian people.
The United Nations military, Tim, because the United Nations is a trustee in bankruptcy for all nations, and all of these people that are in position at the moment have immunity and protection to protect that trustee. That is their role in the office that they hold, whether it be a court, a judge, or a politician. And that is their...
Well, what I'm hearing is a lot of reasons why and no movement forward. I can't participate in that. I'm sorry. Right? I cannot. Now, if there's no movement forward and more preparation required after 5 years, then I think I need to go and play in a different sandpit.
The preparation over 5 years and what your comment was before, I think you'll find at the moment the massive amount of awakening that's going on and people shifting position from voting for major parties to, okay, misguided, loving Pauline Hanson and saying she was right all along, and people moving away from minor parties to not voting at all, and people wanting a Nepal style takedown, is everyone is moving at such a rapid rate that I believe within 12 months to 18 months that this, and with the more tyranny that's going to be brought down from the Albanese government, that this country will be in a place to actually implement a plan of withdrawing all service, all labour, and shutting the country down unless they hand over. If you go in without the support of the public, all right, you will basically end up shooting yourself in the foot. In my opinion, if you go too early, without the support, without the numbers, without the masses aware and in support of what you're doing, it will, I think, be an epic fail.
Okay, Darren, you've got a much bigger reach than I have through your organisation. Tell you what, put it out there and ask people that, do they want the Australian government to be stood down, state and federal, now, or do they want to wait another 12 or 18 months as and let me go back, election do they want to stand down the state or federal government now to stop any further tyranny coming to this country, or do they want to wait another 12 or 18 months and allow more tyranny and more events or whatever take place? And if you put it out there, because I honestly believe that if we ask the Australian people, everywhere you go, they have had an absolute, to say the word gutsful is beyond it. They just don't know what to do about it until somebody gives them step 1, step 2, step 3, let's go. Then they'll just complain and whinge and bitch and do whatever they can, send in petitions, do whatever. But if we give people an absolute step-by-step process where they can actually physically go in and say, we've had enough, you're out, get out. You are not serving the Commonwealth. You are a corporation. We do not comply. We do not consent. Get out. And if we did it by 5 million people, they're out.
Okay, and I can pretty much guarantee that everyone wants that, but what are they willing to sacrifice, or what are they willing to do to actually achieve that goal? And 90% of the freedom movement aren't willing to do what's required.
I think you're both right. But there are a lot of people who are yet to wake up. The numbers, like you say, Darren, are very important. Now, there's been some news that, as incredulous as it may sound, Craig Cole came out with yesterday, suggesting that this bloke was going to be parachuted into a safe New South Wales Labor seat after the resignation of a New South Wales sitting member. Now, you mentioned it before, Darren, that Albanese is under, a lot of pressure at the moment, publicly, politically, and there is some, as you said, couple of petitions running around. One I've seen has got 75,000 signatures on it. In fact, if people want to go and click on that one, if you'll take that comment off the screen, people will be able to just do a QR code scan of that, and that'll take you to a petition where you can sign it if you so desire to get rid of Alba Sleazy. What good it'll do you, I don't know. But it's got about 75,000 signatures on it, or it did last time I looked. And there are others, I think, that you can be part of as well. The thought I have is that Albo, because he cannot be sacked by the Labor Party as a sitting Prime Minister, because they made one of their laws inside the Labor Party that they wouldn't go sacking sitting prime ministers anymore after the Crud debacle. So they can't sack him. He has to willingly resign. Now, given the pressure that's been put on him currently, and I think will only keep ramping up over the next couple of weeks at the very least, I don't think he's going to have a very Merry Christmas. We can only wish that for him. He might decide sometime in the new year, just after he's handed out the latest batch of awards to his mates, that he and the new bride have had enough and want to go off and begin their life together out of the public eye. And lo and behold, we have the safest, or one of the safest seats in New South Wales. Albo Sleazy's himself come up for grabs. They parachute Dan Andrews into it, and then Andrews is in the federal parliament. And because the Labor Party know they're on a hiding to nothing at the next federal election, there isn't one of those lying, thieving pricks sitting there currently that wants to take up the job of Prime Minister. But if they put Dan Andrews into the job and let him have his head for 18 months, well, we're going to get kicked out anyway. He's going to get all the blame. Look what we can achieve. How's that feel?
I think it's laughable. It's hilarious. And once again, everybody is falling into the trap of the cabal. They're entertained by the circus. And we need to spend more time, I believe. And I sat with a guy this afternoon who just did a deal to have his gearbox rebuilt. And he paid a certain amount of yellow stuff and a certain amount of silver stuff. And the deal was done. And the guy said, this is the first time I've ever done this. He was worried about the government finding out, yada, yada, yada. And this is where it's at. When we start doing private deals for services and we leave the system behind, we need to spend more time growing and establishing the parallel system as well to implement the change. And we don't need to engage. We don't need to be paying tax. We don't need to be using their system when we develop our own. So whether we can remove their system or not anytime soon through letters, petitions, or whatever else, we can certainly leave their system behind at a certain percentage, at least 50 to 60%. And the system will collapse as more people gain confidence in dealing in other ways. I could have bought my motorbike from this gentleman for 4 kilos about 2 years ago, and I told him he could jam it. I'm keeping that stuff, and I can give you my folding stuff because it's bloody worthless. Now that motorbike would have cost me $12,000 if I hadn't given him the silver back then. So more people are actually looking at other ways to trade, barter, and provide services to each other outside of the system. So this is another parallel system that we should be engaging in that will destabilise and shut this system down, because I still don't believe petitions and paperwork are going to do anything unless we've got the masses willing to walk away and shut the ports, shut the cities down, shut the economy down if they don't hand over to a already established committee or interim government.
Tim, I'll give you the final word.
Look, I don't believe the two systems can coexist, that we could operate parallel to what's there, because of the controls that they want to bring in, both in visual and audio and communication controls. It's one or the other. The interesting thing at the moment that I'm looking at is that never, like what am I, nearly 73, and never in my life have I seen this country so fired up over so many issues that are all government issues. Right. Never have I, and we've now got more commentators like Topher Field and all these guys. They're all talking, and these people are usually well-mannered and keep their tongue well harnessed, and they are dropping the F-bomb. They are angry. Certain church leaders are absolutely screaming, and never before in the country have we ever seen so much fervor against the government. We must have either the new system or put up with the other system. They can't coexist, as much as we'd like it, but no, it won't. Can't do it, I don't believe. And we can certainly operate in the dark. Why pay tax? You know, my favorite stance is it's voluntary. We don't pay tax. We don't collect their tax. We don't do any of that shit. We can do a lot of things to position ourselves away from them as best we can, but we cannot afford to leave them with their hands on the levers and controls of this country for very much longer, because if we do, they will have you in such a bloody stranglehold. You might wish you could move, you might want to do something different, but physically it will be, you won't be able to do it. So this is why I'm now saying we pull the trigger, we go, we put this thing in place. And if Darren's right and the people don't want to come, and I'm the only bloke out there walking into public offices trying to kick them out, well, then I expect every one of the people on this call to at least write me a nice letter while I'm in jail and say, oh, shit, Tim, you buggered it up, mate. You got it all wrong. Darren was right. So stick it in your pipe. Too bad. So sad. Have a nice day. All right.
Between me and the Aussie Cossack, we'll get a postcard campaign going for you. Don't worry about it. Gentlemen, thank you very much for spending some time with us on your Thursday night. I really appreciate it. It was a very interesting chat.
My pleasure.
No worries, Carl. Thank you. And thank you, Tim. Good to see you.
Thanks, Darren. You too, mate. Take care.
Good stuff. Great to have the guys in for a chat tonight. And just in case Victorians, I think Victorians got their wish tonight. While the premise that Craig Cole put forward about Dan Andrews being parachuted into a New South Wales seat may or may not yet happen, but I think Victorians today have got their wish, because Dan Andrews, according to news.com.au, was admitted to the Monash Clayton Hospital a few days ago with a pox of some kind. So Dan Andrews has a pox upon him. It is an unidentified pox, and that makes it just all the more salacious, I guess, as he was in China, 3 months ago, and he now needs to be hospitalized. So congratulations, Victoria. You've had a wish granted. I think that's absolutely fabulous. There are a couple of other things that I was going to talk about. One of which is Tina Peters. Now, that might be a name you don't know. We spoke briefly, probably not long enough, with Juan O'Savin recently about Tina Peters. Now, Tina Peters has been locked up in a Colorado prison after being found guilty of sharing data she had access to as someone who oversaw election voting and results in Colorado in some federal elections. You know the ones I'm talking about. Now, she apparently did the right thing and took details of what was wrong to her bosses, and they politely looked at her and said, no, you're wrong. She said, no, I'm right, really. And then she realized that they were all in on it. So she became something of a whistleblower. Well, she was charged with all of that and given quite a hefty sentence. We're talking, I think it was 30 plus years. The woman's 70 odd years old. Now, what she has is significant evidence and actual 100% full-blown proof of the cheating that went on, at least in Colorado, in those federal elections. And Donald Trump pardoned her, gave her an official pardon. Her lawyer turned up at the prison with that official pardon in his hand, where the jailers, the Department of Corrections, refused to honor it. Now, there are stories that because they refused to honor it, the Trump government sent military forces in to go and extricate her from the prison. I don't know how true that is, but we are hoping that 107 will join us in the not too distant future. And us, I mean Becio from Truth Seekers TV and myself. We are trying to live stream on Truth Seeker TV at the moment too. I'm having all sorts of problems. I'm having one problem. I'm getting everything loaded, but it doesn't seem to be streaming. So I'm going to go and try and figure that out. And I might need Vince to do that, but we will get there. At any rate, we hope to have that as a live show with 107. That'll mean that you will have the opportunity to ask him questions. He's actually very excited to have the opportunity to answer your questions. So if you want to make sure that your questions are in the pile of questions to be asked, then you better email them to me, I guess, and we'll start keeping a list of the questions for one. You will also have the opportunity on the night. We'll be able to throw some of them up on the screen as well. We'll ask him to make the answers pretty short to the questions so we can get through as many of them as possible. But we'll also learn how Tina Peters and what information she will be allowed to share going forward, how that affects not just the US of A, but a large number of Western countries all around the world. It's going to blow your mind when you get into this. And this lady has evidence of it all. What do they say? Digitally, every touch leaves a trace. Ain't that the truth? Well, unless you're looking at the new lot of drones that the Ukraine is sending up against the Russia. Do you notice anything funny about that? Let me slow it down for you. I've been lucky enough to be on a tank, near a tank, driven a tank, fired a tank, been around tanks while they've been firing. I've bumped into a tank, fallen off a tank, fallen into a tank. I've done a lot of things around tanks. And they hurt. They don't rock. They don't move. The barrel certainly doesn't wiggle when, some oaf beats himself against it. They certainly don't move when something as light as a drone airframe, which I'll be generous and say it weighed 5 kilos. These were obviously dummies. They wanted to show, what it could do, but they were meant to be blowing up a real tank. That's what people were told. This is a real tank. These are the drones. We're going to fly into them. They're going to blow up, but we don't want to blow the tanks up. So we're just going to show you what it looks like when they crash into them. Really? And you saw that the drones didn't look too damaged. None of them broke up into pieces or anything weird. They bounced off the tank. So anyway, I just thought you might like to see that little bit of fun. The question I have for our Australian farmers is, does any... They're burning cows in France at the moment, which is not a good thing. There is a vaccine that has poisoned cows. My question is, are there any farmers in Australia that have one of these machines? I mean, that is a very effective machine, which I think could be put to some significant use outside of the paddock that you normally run it around in. I'm asking for a friend. Speaking of friends, Waptha has sent an update on Carl Jr. and the family of puppies. I think there's only 2 left. So they're getting bigger. Too friggin' cute for words. No, I can't. I really want to, but I can't. You and I will be talking, though. There is a chance we might catch up on Saturday. And Margie Sedgman, who I owe a phone call. In fact, I probably owe 3 phone calls to. Looking forward to maybe catching up with her on Saturday. And that might mean that I could catch up with Sunflower and Rick on Saturday and anybody else on the Sunshine Coast, which might mean I'd have to hang around until Sunday, in which case I'll better call the Galactic Larrikin and find out whether or not there's a bit of carpet I can sleep at his B&B, because I don't want to infest myself into his beds. All right, folks, that plan means I'm going to do a bit of driving over the weekend. I'm excited to go and do it. And you never know, the daughter might come for a drive as well. We will be much better off having another set of eyes on the roads, because at Christmas time, well, the dickheads do come out to play. Be safe, folks, if you're going, whether it's going to the shopping centre or driving across the country. It's probably more dangerous in the shopping centre, if I'm honest. The dickheads there are overwhelming. See you tomorrow night.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!